I'm Jessica Mernan, and this is an Inside and Outside podcast. I'm an author and horticultural therapy practitioner, and with my company Basker, I help people and businesses use nature and gardening for health, creativity, and social well-being. And in this podcast, you'll hear our guest this week has zero interest in gardening. So we talk about her connection to nature, because you don't have to like gardening or hiking or being in the woods to get a connection to nature. You can do it in your own way. So we talk about that. We're just going to get to it today. This week, my guest is Ruby Warrington. She's a journalist and author. She might be best known for coining the phrase sober curious, which is a book and also a podcast, and really just this big movement for people to reevaluate their relationship to alcohol. I've heard from people in my own life how much that book and her message has helped them. And so if you haven't read it, pick it up. It's a really good one. She also wrote Material Girl, Mystical World, The Numinous Astro Deck, The Sober Curious Reset, and her last book was Women Without Kids. She's currently writing her newest book, which on the day we recorded this episode, which was last Friday, it was due in 3 days. Today, actually, Monday. You're listening to this on Tuesday. So, Ruby, I hope you got it turned in. We're going to talk all about what that new book is about. I met Ruby back in 2017 when my first book came out. I had a UK deal, and my UK publisher arranged an interview with the Evening Standard, and they flew me to New York to be interviewed by Ruby, which is so rare, and I'm not even sure if that happens anymore unless you're a celebrity. But I got lucky, and they chose her to interview me. We hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. She's the best. In this episode, we talk about how Ruby is not into gardening, the content machine that's everywhere right now, and our inboxes on our phones, everywhere we look, and of course, her current inside obsession. But first, let's hear all about this week's sponsor, My July, a brand I truly love. I'm so thankful for all the amazing sponsors this season, all incredible women doing incredible things. All right, I'll talk to you on the other side. This week's sponsor is My July. My July is a results-driven clean skincare line delivering products that are safe, gentle, effective, and comforting to those with highly sensitive skin. And its origin story is pretty beautiful. A mom, Dawn, was looking for solutions to help her daughter, Michaela, dealing with late-stage chronic Lyme disease. They worked together to create skincare solutions that not only calm Michaela's skin flare-ups, but were made for anyone looking for results-driven formulas that are safe, gentle, and effective for those of all ages for daily use. Some of my favorite My July products are their signature Gold Mine Face Oil. It's infused with a plant-based retinol that's more easily absorbed and helps refine skin tone. And my favorite is their Woods Nature Spray, an all-natural tick and mosquito repellent, which you might hear the words tick and mosquito repellent and you might think is Centronella candle, but Woods has become my go-to scent. It's woodsy, it's rich, it's sexy. I need it in my life every single day, even when I'm not going outside. And it doesn't just smell good. It's been clinically tested to offer 85% protection against mosquitoes and 100% protection against ticks when applied every 3 to 4 hours. And guess what? They just launched Woods Dog, a dog-friendly, vet-approved version of Woods to discourage fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. And it might even help your dog be less stinky. My July truly cares about your sensitive skin and offers a range of products to nurture and create more calm for your body, face, and mind. Check them out for yourself at myjulyskin.com and use code INSIDEOUTSIDE15 for 15% off your first purchase. The whole product line has so much intention around it, and it happens to just look really good too. Again, that's myjulyskin.com and use code INSIDEOUTSIDE15 for 15% off. And I'll also include this in the show notes. Ruby, welcome to the podcast. And actually, I should say how I always greet you. Ruby. Which
Hey, Jess.
I just love saying your name in a British way. And I know I don't sound British when I say it, but I think I do, sort of.
You do sort of. It's very cute. I like it.
You just have a very easy name to do it. I actually, you know, it's funny. I always remember when I used to watch Oprah before she betrayed us. Whenever she would have a British or Australian guest on, she would start doing an accent, and I'm like, that's so cringe. And then I just did that.
I didn't know that about her.
Yes.
There is definitely some people, some Americans I know who almost just can't help themselves. But I take it as kind of like, not a compliment necessarily, but it's like, there's obviously something intriguing about me and my accent that.
Well, I mean, hello, like and we all watch Love Island, so we just like British accents.
Yes, and The Crown.
Well, thank you for being on here. We've obviously talk all the time, but not formally recording it. So I'm excited to talk to you like this. And, on this podcast, we talk about inside things and outside things, and we always start outside. And I kind of wanted to bring, actually, wow, this is a great segue. I wanted to share with you if you knew the difference between the amount of people in the UK that have a garden or access to a garden versus households in the US that do. I'm curious to see what you think about the percentage. What would you say the percentage is?
I have no idea. I would guess that more people in the US have access to outdoor space because the US is so much bigger.
I'm about to shock you.
But I have a feeling that maybe it's the other way around.
So this is a 2021 census. So, things could change, but I don't know how much it's probably changed. 87% of UK households have a garden or access to a garden. 55% of American households do.
Interesting.
And I was reading a little bit more about this, and it's seen more as a cultural thing versus Americans is more of a hobby. It's like, it's almost like in your blood. So I'm curious, did you grow up with a garden?
Yes. I also have something to add. Apartment living is, I think, much more common, especially in American cities, than it is in the UK. Like, the UK doesn't have the same high-rise culture as America, even in big cities. And so apartments obviously don't have gardens for the most part,
But a lot.
So I think maybe that's something that plays into it.
Yeah, but even if you live in yes, and a lot of people that live in apartments, they have allotments.
Yes, allotments is quite a specific thing.
Yes.
And that was a post-war initiative. Post-war, or maybe even during the war, during rationing periods, public land was basically turned over to become allotments, which are small plots of land that people were essentially given or could rent for a small fee to grow their own vegetables. My mum has always had an allotment while I was growing up. So even when we had gardens, she would often have a separate place where she would go grow vegetables. Now it's a lot of places, they're very hard to come by. There are long waiting lists to get an allotment. But for my mum, it was a thrifty measure. It was cheaper for her to grow vegetables than to shop at the grocery store.
Right.
And so she still, she lives in a little bungalow in Suffolk, which is a very rural part of the UK, a county on the east coast. And half of the lawn of the garden of this bungalow that she has, she's turned over to like a vegetable patch. So she still grows the bulk of her own vegetables.
Wow.
But with that in my background, not that I learned to grow vegetables myself. I was never interested, but she modeled that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, you live in the US now, you live in New York, you live in an apartment, and I'm curious your feelings about that gardening now, no interest, then versus now. Do you have interest? I mean, obviously you're not doing it in your apartment, but would you have interest to do something like that?
Not. I feel terrible saying this to you.
No, you don't have to feel terrible at all.
I would not. And it's partly.
Tell me why.
I'm not someone I've never really enjoyed doing things with my hands. I've always really enjoyed doing things with my mind. Like as a kid, I would love to sit indoors and do crossword puzzles rather than be outdoors, like playing, like making mud pies in the garden. I've just been always much more of I like to be occupied mentally more so than craftily with my hands. I think that's part of it. The other part of it is I just am one of those people, I just don't have a green thumb. Like nothing I've ever tried to grow has ever grown. And so that's kind of been discouraging, you know? It's discouraged me from wanting to try harder or learn more about gardening, I suppose. Yeah. So yeah, those are my kind of two reasons. And yeah, like I've lived in New York for the past 14 years and haven't had a garden the whole time I've been here. So it hasn't even been an option. And it's one of those things, I don't know. I've always associated gardening with being more of an older person's activity. And I suppose part of me has always wondered if I would start to have more of an interest in it as I get older. I don't know. That might be the case, but no, my mum's love of gardening and growing things didn't get passed down to me.
And I think, okay, I'm not going to challenge your reasons. I will challenge two of them, but not the first one. I had no interest in this until 10 years ago when I moved to Charleston, which I then actually finally had space. And I too, like, I can't keep a houseplant alive to save my life. Like, that's just not something. And so I understand that feeling of not feeling like you have a green thumb. I also want to challenge it's not for old people. I mean, I think what's interesting is when you look at statistics in the horticulture world, Gen Z right now is like coming up right behind the 55-year-old, 60-year-old people that are gardening because I think a lot of them want to be offline. I think there's so much research and studies that support like how good it is for us. So I also think you don't have to garden to be connected to nature. Like you can have your own relationship with nature.
For sure. And I think, the old people, I don't know where that came from. It's obvious. It's of course not true.
But I think that's how we look at it on that. Right. That's what media shows us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a show in the UK. What's it called? Oh God, I'm going to forget it. It's very famous.
Monty Don?
Yes, but there's the annual, the Chelsea Flower Show, I guess. So I just remember, watching that with my parents, and everybody there was old. But to me, like 10 year old me, of course, they were probably 35, exactly. But it's also reminding me, I'd forgotten about this, when I was like first starting to do journalism in my early 20s. I was writing for a lot of really trendy magazines. And I did an article, like this big feature for this magazine called Sleaze Nation, which was all about people in the kind of like fashion and music industries who loved gardening as a kind of contrast to their very kind of glamorous, chaotic, like urban lifestyles. Sorry.
Is that a house phone?
Just went. I don't know why my doorbell just went.
It sounded like a house phone. I got so excited.
And yeah, so I remember, the guy that we lived in a house share with, he had a record label, this really cool record label, and he loved gardening. And even now, like on Facebook, he's always sharing photographs of like his vegetable haul from that week and everything. So like, I think some people are just drawn to it from
and I think too,
age.
I mean, I think also, when you're talking about the people with the record label or fashion, there's so much design involved in it and color. And I mean, I think that's why I really did start to get into it more. Like today, I just got my 2026 seed catalog from Baker's Creek, and it literally felt like Vogue September issue 1995. Like that's how excited I was. And it's just when you flip through it, it's just color and geometry. And I guess I just think of it less about gardening and more about this design palette that I get to have fun with and really do most of it inside until I take it outside to plant.
Well, who knows what the future holds?
I for some reason in my heart, I see it happening for you.
Thank you.
Or not, but I think, some type of deeper connection to nature maybe. Because I know you've told me before that when you go home and sometimes your mom is so into nature and you're like, I don't get this, you started to kind of understand it a little bit better.
A little bit better. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it kind of like, it gets into some sort of deeper family stuff. Like, I was born in London, you know, in W1, like Central London Hospital. And my dad has always lived in Central London. But when I was 1 year old, my mum was craving, she was raised in the countryside and is much more of a country person. She took me to live in the countryside, and she and my dad officially kind of were still together. He would come up at the weekends and whatever, but he wasn't in my life after that point. And I always associated the city with being with dad. And I wanted that, you know, and I think I always slightly resented my mom for taking me to the countryside, which was what she wanted. It was the environment she wanted to be in, at the expense of my relationship with my father, you know? So there's kind of that playing into it as well. And I think as I have, and so visits to the countryside always carried this sort of tone of, the sort of feeling tone of that, I suppose, those early childhood yearnings to be with my dad, to be in the city. But as I've started to make more peace with that, I've been able to enjoy spending time in the countryside with my mom and actually really see what she loves about it in a way that I couldn't before necessarily. And I mean, you know, I grew up in a very, very rural environment. Like we lived, the back of our row of houses was like a dirt track just leading out onto fields. And my childhood was spent just playing out in the fields, out in nature, very wild, very unsupervised, very imaginative play kind of in nature. The village was on a river as well. So there was kind of a river and all of the river wildlife and nature as well. And I guess maybe took it for granted a bit. And like I say, going to the city was so full of excitement for me. And it just felt so much more like, this is where I want to be. But I think a large part of that was about wanting to be with my dad, honestly.
Wow. Yeah, I think I definitely get that. And I mean, even, listen, Charleston is not New York, but I also couldn't live in a rural city either. Okay. Like, I don't know that I would love gardening as much as I do if I did it in a rural place, because I like to have both. I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast. It's like, I like shitty TV and I like to garden. I like to go to, like go walk and get food and then come back. I definitely feel like I like the setting that I'm gardening in. I don't know if I would like it as much if it was set in a more isolated rural place.
Where it wasn't sort of almost a contrast or a retreat or
a
deal
for sure,
in contrast to the more urban life that you have. Yeah,
exactly. I think I love that contrast. Like you said, it just feels better. And I don't know if I would like it if I was in the suburbs as much.
I mean, I live in Brooklyn and every day I will walk along the river front, which is incredible and fills me up every time. Every day I will walk around my local park and marvel at the beauty of the blossoms or the leaves and the cuteness of the animals that are just kind of doing their thing in the park. So it's not like I don't appreciate nature at all. I think that it's I'm a real loner, and I can easily start to feel lonely when I'm in a very rural place.
Yeah.
Being in the kind of like that, what do they say, alone togetherness of being in a city. I really like that feeling of being around people, but not necessarily being known by everybody. I can kind of be anonymous, but feel like I'm a part of a community still in the city. And so I think that's another reason that I feel more comfortable in city environments.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel much more conspicuous in a countryside environment,
Yeah. Well, my whole goal is to get everyone to connect with nature in some way. And you're already doing it with your walks.
Yes.
And the blossoms.
My walks.
Yeah.
I'm just constantly stunned by how beautiful nature is. Leaves, trees, blossoms, animals, it's it's magical. And I'm grateful that in a city like New York there still are parks, not many. I remember when I first moved to New York, I was astonished by what they would call a park. 6 square feet of like concrete with a couple of trees in it. That's a park. I'm like, okay, no.
So this little middle time, before we go inside, I always like to talk about something with the guests that either is what they're working on or kind of just what I'm interested in what they're doing. And I'm so torn between these two choices for you. One is talking about being child free, which I think is such an interesting topic to talk about, especially around the holidays when all of your family is asking about that. But then the second thing is we all know, if you subscribe to your newsletter, you're working on a new book around content and our consumption and so much of it. And I really was thinking about it a lot with like Black Friday being today. So, Ruby, what is your choice?
Well, I mean, my manuscript for the new book is due on Monday, so my head is full of content.
Okay.
Which was part of the problem and part of why I wanted to write this book. I realized that my head had become so full of content that I could barely hear myself think. And as somebody whose thoughts are my bread and butter, that was a kind of scary place to be. So I took a big step away from what I call the content machine.
So are you choosing number 2?
I think I'm choosing number 2.
Okay, great. Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you were interested,
it relates a bit more to indoor outdoors as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but if you were interested in learning more about being child free or childless, Ruby did write a whole book on that.
I did. So my previous book was called Women Without Kids. It came out in 2023, roughly a year before crazy cat ladies started being blamed for everything that's wrong with the world. But it kind of it really digs deep into my own decision not to have children, but on a much broader scale, why there has been and it continues to be this kind of like drop in birth rates all around the world as more and more women choose either to have no children at all or to have far fewer children than women have had historically. So there's a lot of moral panic around this. There's a lot to dig into there, and it's a really in-depth reporting project.
I'll include that in the show notes. So we'll move into content over consumption, just consumption. So today we're recording this on Black Friday. And I think what's so interesting in the past couple of years is my inbox today. Not one. I mean, I must have 100 emails and I want to unsubscribe a lot today. But what's interesting about today, and I would say the past couple of years, is I'm not just receiving Black Friday sale emails. I'm receiving roundups about Black Friday sale emails. I'm also receiving emails about why we shouldn't buy on Black Friday. I'm also getting emails about you should wait till Cyber. It's just like, it's content about content about content. And it just, I couldn't even look today. And listen, I need to get some new bras. I have like one right now that's working for me. And I'm like, I'm going to try to hit some sales, but I can't even, going online right now just feels like I can't today.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what you're describing is what has happened. And it's kind of the logical end game of anything and everything moving and needing to be expressed online. It's funny, I did a bunch of unsubscribing today. So I'd started to explain like why I decided to write a book on this subject. It actually springs in a way out of my work with Sober Curious, which was the book prior to Women Without Kids, which was about, a different approach to alcohol consumption, a different approach to changing your relationship to alcohol. The Sober Curious approach I have over the past 5-6 years applied to my overconsumption of email, addiction to email, overconsumption of social media, addiction to social media. And these are just kind of, private sort of missions, I suppose, that just kind of arose quite spontaneously. And then, about a year and a half ago, I guess I was feeling quite burnt out coming out of the promotion period for Women Without Kids and having created like an absolute shit ton of content about my new book, because that was the received wisdom. Like, the more content you make about your book, the more people will hear about your book, and therefore the more people will buy your book. Also, you can't give away too much of your content for free. It's all good promotion. It'll just make more people buy your book. It's not what happened.
Let's define let's define what you also mean by content, because I think sometimes we think of content as like a content creator that's making like a YouTube or an Instagram post, but content is a much broader term. And so share what you mean by that phrase.
Well, by content, I'm really talking about anything that we consume online, particularly anything that we consume via apps and online content feeds that are driven by algorithms. So content has, always been a term. It used to refer to any form of media, but it was in 1996, Bill Gates wrote quite a famous essay called Content is King. And in that essay, he really talked about how the people who would benefit from the internet, the people who would be able to monetize this brand new tool or informational kind of structure of the internet were content providers. What he was talking about was the fact that in order to monetize the internet, it would all have to be advertising based. And so you would need content to support that advertising, right? To generate that kind of advertising revenue. That's what we've come to pass in the past 30 years. When I talk about content, it's really kind of anything that we consume online. A lot of people think about, like you said, social media content. And I think that's because social media is actually the only genuinely novel content delivery device of the internet era, right? I talk in the book about there's always been vintage content, newspapers, books, magazines, albums, DVDs, TV even, these are all forms of vintage content. Social media is the only novel content delivery device of the internet era. So that's why we often think of content being social media content. But I'm really talking about anything and everything we consume online, including newsletters and emails. The other thing about content, the thing that differentiates content from online products or media products is that it's typically free. And its purpose is typically to sell something, whether that is a product, whether that is an ideology, whether that is somebody wanting to just kind of like generate more numbers, grow their following. It's typically designed with an ulterior motive, which is to kind of extract something from us. Whereas when you start paying for content, it becomes a product. At that point, you're acknowledging this media, this thing has some value, adds some value to my life, and it's worth paying for. So anything that's free is also content.
Yeah, and thank you for defining that. And I'm wondering this just your book's not out, so we're not going to give away everything. I mean, you haven't even turned in the manuscript yet. But I think what's so interesting is that where do you see the amount of content that we get right now is just too much for me personally. And I think, the whole reason why you wanted to write this book, because you've got someone's newsletter, you've also got them on social, they've also got them on YouTube. Everywhere. But our attention spans have also declined so much. And this is not just me saying it. There's a lot of evidence, and I can even put some stuff in the show notes link to some reports on that. I'm just wondering what you're seeing as you're researching this book. Is it the amount of content that we're consuming that is shortening our attention span, or is it content that's so short and bite-sized that's killing our attention span? Because I remember, not even that long ago, maybe a year ago, I would easily be able to sit down and read a long form Vanity Fair Atlantic article. Now I find myself being like, I got to get off this screen. Like, I just want to go buy this somewhere and read it not on my screen, because I have a hard time focusing when I'm reading things on a screen. So I'm wondering, have you seen, which one is it, or is it both?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that the sheer volume of content that we're exposed to, whether we're actively opting into it or if it's finding us in our inbox on our phones with notifications, whatever, it just creates this kind of this, we're sort of just trained to constantly switch from one thing to the next, we're trained to scan, basically. And so the more of that kind of content we get used to consuming, the more taxing it feels to sit down and focus on one piece of content. Something you said was very interesting, actually. I would recommend getting the print edition of Vanity Fair and reading the article there and seeing if you have a different
I completely
time.
different. Like my friend
Exactly.
just sent me her new novel to be sort of like a first beta reader on, and I cannot, it's not enjoyable for me to, she's like, well, you could do a Kindle. I'm like, I don't have a Kindle. And I don't want to fucking read it on my computer screen.
No.
Like that is not enjoyable to me at all. And I don't know if it ever was, but it's just becoming, it feels like impossible, intolerable to read it on my computer screen.
Yeah. I mean,
or on my phone, right?
Yeah, exactly. To me, I mean, for me, reading anything on my computer or on my phone, it feels like work.
Exactly.
So these devices are so strongly associated to my professional life that it doesn't feel enjoyable. And so I'm much less likely to want to sink into it and spend time with a piece that I'm reading online. I have been reading a lot more print media since I went on my content diet a year and a half ago. And I have, I was worried about my own attention span and my own ability to kind of like stick with longer form pieces of content. Happily, I can report that has rebounded simply from unplugging from that kind of deluge of short form content that I was just consuming without even really thinking before. And this is where it links to Sober Curious. With Sober Curious, I was really talking about how for the majority of adults, you just enter the drinking culture without thinking. It's just there. It's just what people do. And I think that that's how a lot of us have entered the kind of social media realm. It's just what we do. It's just where people connect. It's where people share stuff. It's where people get their information. It's where people get their news. And I kind of want to challenge that thinking. It's funny, like the book is about all forms of content, but the idea of content diet speaks to this idea of sort of digital nutrition. Like some content is more nutritious on a psychological and emotional level than other kinds of content. It's not about saying your phone is evil, break up with your phone, like get a dumb phone and never go online, delete your social media accounts. It's more about really being mindful and conscious of what you're consuming online, why you're consuming it, what you're actually looking for, what you're getting, the longer term impacts and effects of what you're consuming online. And then from there, sort of curating a content diet that actually really feeds you, because we need information. We need entertainment. We need to be connected. Like these are all good developments, right? But there's been so little regulation of the space because it's so new, really, in sort of general terms. And so while we wait for better regulation of these products and services, we can take responsibility for what we're consuming and also for what we're sharing, the content that we're creating and putting out there as well.
Yes. Okay. So I think what's interesting about that parallel with Sober Curious, and just to give a broad overview, Sober Curious was your book, and really one of the first, and now there's a lot of them that have copied your book, but it was this idea of some people don't necessarily have to join AA. They're not necessarily alcoholics. Maybe you just have a more curious approach to being sober and drinking. Maybe you don't always have to drink. Maybe it is just a social thing and you realize, wow, this doesn't really make me feel that good. So to parallel that to this content, I just had a friend who I talked to last weekend, and he got sober. He stopped drinking, and he also quit social media at the same exact time. And for him, this is not true of everyone, but for him, he said it was easier to stop drinking than it was to stop using social media. And I think what is interesting about this is when you make the parallel to Sober Curious, I think for some people, it's hard for them to have that gray area of, okay, well, sometimes I might be on social and sometimes I might not. Maybe I'll delete the app tonight and see what happens. Some people just actually need to go cold turkey because it's just not good for them. And I feel like with me, like I couldn't be curious about it anymore. I'm like, I just need to be off this thing because these little like rules and boundaries and like I'll only download it one day a week. And then it's like, it just didn't work for me. So I think when we're setting up these rules or guardrails for ourselves with content, sometimes it's just unsubscribing from maybe someone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the same with Sober Curious. You know, Sober Curious is not about rules and moderating your intake and sort of saying, well, I can do it in these situations and not these situations. For anybody who's getting Sober Curious, my recommendation is take several months of not drinking at all so you can get proper distance from that substance, that behavior. And I would say the same applies to any content feeds that you're finding are very triggering for you or are causing really kind of like problematic reactions or consequences in your life. Take a extended break from that thing so that you can return to it with a fresh mind and you can actually really get clarity around how this is impacting me.
Yeah, because so today we were talking about all the newsletters that I got, and I would say there's probably 5, and they were people whose newsletters I've subscribed to. I was very hesitant to hit that unsubscribe. One, because I felt bad if they saw it. But then I thought, well, what if I forget about them? What if I forget that I like their content? And I'm like, that is so wild. If I actually am that into them, I will not forget about them.
Exactly.
But I think like with a lot of Substack stuff, because it's just sort of this, everything looks the same. There isn't really a lot of uniqueness to the design or these emails. You do kind of feel like, well, actually I don't even remember this woman's name. I kind of just like what she writes. And it's like creating these weird connections that aren't even really connections.
They're not. They're called parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
Where we feel like we know somebody. And it happens a lot with podcasters because podcasts are such an intimate form of content. Like listening to a podcast really does feel like you're part of that conversation with that person or those two people, right? And so these parasocial relationships form where we feel like we have an emotional connection to the person, the content creator, when they don't even know who we are. You know?
Right.
And that's become so normal. It's become so normalized.
And really, for some of them, and this is not a diss because I think their content is great for someone else, I don't even really like it that much. I just am afraid if I unsubscribe, I'll miss something that I will like.
Okay, so that's a version of FOMO, right?
I guess.
And the thing is, a part of the mindset shift is to say to yourself, which is exactly the same as with Sober Curious, you don't need any of that content in your life. What if you only chose to include what genuinely feeds you or excites you or interests you? You know, the fear that you might miss something that this person has to say. The thing is, if you miss it, you won't miss it. Like you just won't.
Okay, well,
what I mean is, if you miss it, if you don't receive it, you're not going to miss it. If you're in a position where something is lacking, where you're wanting to discover something, where you're wanting to find something out, you could then go and seek out, oh, that person writes about that. I wonder what they've been saying recently. You could go and look at their Substack page. You don't necessarily need to be receiving everything they say on a weekly basis. This is what 100%. Leads to content overwhelm, when we find our brains just absolutely overwhelmed, our brains and also our emotional brains overwhelmed by trying to digest this barrage of information, this barrage of content that's kind of just streaming into our consciousness.
I want to challenge, I think for myself, I don't even know if it's FOMO. I think it's almost this drive, and my whole family's going to be like, yeah, you are a fucking know-it-all. But it is this drive to want to know everything. Like even when I'm reading a magazine, like I love T Magazine. It's one of my most favorite magazines. When I'm flipping through a T Magazine, I flip through a page and I think, oh my gosh, I just flipped over something. What if that piece of information that I just flipped over is something that I need to know? So it's this obsession, and I've always had this obsession, even from a young person, this obsession with feeling like I need to know everything just in case. So I think that's where it's coming from, and less of a FOMO thing.
I can relate to that. Well, there's fear of not knowing, then fear of not having the information that you need. That's what it's a version of FOMO.
Yes,
it's you're missing out on knowing that thing, right? This I can relate so strongly to this. It's why I became a journalist. It's why I'm an author. Like I have such a curious mind, which on the one hand is a curious creative mind that is just very interested in the world. And on the other hand is actually a hypervigilant mind that is incredibly anxious and equates having all the information with safety.
Yes.
Know? And so when I really first started realizing I wanted to be content curious, my Saturday and Sunday mornings since I started out in journalism in my early 20s have been spent literally binging everything in every newspaper, and more so the opinion columns. Like, what is everybody saying about everything that's happened? Because I felt I needed to be part of that conversation, because I had aspirations to be one of those people who had things to say about the world. But also it became quite obsessive, like just needing to know what everyone had to say about everything that was going on in the world, to the point where I just, like I said, I just kind of got to a point where I was like, I just physically can't do this anymore. And detaching from that need, I no longer look at the New York Times app. I've unsubscribed from pretty much every Substack newsletter that I was following. I've just realized, I actually don't need to know any of that. And if I do, if there's something I come across, or if I hear about something in a conversation or hear about something on a podcast and I want to learn more about it, then I know very well how to go and research that thing. I don't need it to just kind of be letting it into my consciousness on a 24/7 basis,
Wow, I'm going to say I'm going to try to do that. It's very hard for me. And I think also that not wanting to unsubscribe, and I'm not going to say her name, but she'll know who she is if she listens to this. I don't know if she does.
Are you going to say
I don't want to hurt my feelings.
Same. I did that today. Like, there's one person who is a friend, right? We regularly meet up in real life. I value her work and I'm on her newsletter, but she sends like 5 or 6 newsletters a week.
That's a lot
of her products, right? Her courses and things that she's doing. And I'm just like, for me, a part of the problem with too many emails is that my brain sees a bunch of unread emails in my inbox. It triggers a kind of a stress response, like, now I have to respond to all these emails, even if they're just newsletters. So the less I can have coming into my inbox, just the more calm I feel in general when I go into my inbox, which I have to do for my work, And so, but again, I didn't unsubscribe today because I thought, I wonder if she checks her unsubscribes every week and she'll see that I've unsubscribed. And then I'll, which is, again, it's another very unnatural sort of relationships thing that has happened with the advent of this content machine, there's a part in the book, and honestly, I'm so close to the manuscript, I can't remember where I wrote about it, but there's a part where I talk about these different kind of, parasocial relationships have become normalized. Ghosting has become normalized. Seeing people as disposable has become normalized in a way, seeing people as their avatar, not an actual human being. All of these things have been normalized in this content machine, and they're really changing the way that we relate to each other. And I think creating so much anxiety around relationships that didn't used to be there before.
Right. Yeah. So one of my very best friends when I lived in Chicago, this is so embarrassing to share. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but so this is when I was deep. I was like writing my cookbook. I was moving from Chicago, and my friend wanted to hang out that Sunday, but I was moving soon. And so I just text her. I'm like, hey, I'm like so bogged down today. It's like, we're moving in 2 days. Could we do something Monday instead or whatever? But I was in the machine, and I posted something on Instagram of like my husband and I at this like restaurant or something. And it was an old photo from the week prior, but it was something to promote something else. And she unsubscribed to my newsletter and unfollowed me because she thought I had lied to her, that I was actually not that I wasn't actually too busy to be with her because I was out with my husband at this restaurant. And I mean, since then we've cleared it up, but it hurt so bad when she did that because, and I asked her, you know, why did you do that? And she told me, she's like, you lied. And it's like, I didn't.
What's so interesting though, and this is not, what I want to say is what you did was you lied to your followers. You lied about
100%
being out with your husband, right?
I do want to say this was 11 years ago.
Okay, right. We've learned a lot since then. But still, this is what I mean. And there's a whole piece of this, which is like nothing that we're encountering in the content machine is actually real. Mm-hmm. All of it has been mediated, edited, filtered, curated, to be shared with a specific agenda, which is usually to sell something, right? And so everything that we're encountering there is part of a virtual reality. And I think that there's so much that's creating so much confusion in our real life relationships. And what you shared is just one example of that.
Yeah, it felt awful. It was like, I would never lie to you. And also,
like the fact that rather than call you and say, hey, her response was to punish you by unfollowing and unsubscribing was also kind of messed up.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, 11 years ago, we've all learned our lesson, although I still know people that do that every single day.
Yeah, I don't know if we have. I think there's a lot of learning to do.
I've learned my lesson.
How do you have? You're ahead of the curve. You're always ahead of the curve.
And fucking up.
But I also think I don't know. I think you're somebody, you have a lot of integrity, I think. And you just you've always struck me as somebody who you will stand by your word. Like if you say, I'm not going to be on social media, you're not then going to be on social media. I have seen so many people, it's a lot of people, not naming any names, but in the sober space, because I do think a lot of people who have more addictive tendencies, quite obviously that's going to come out in terms of social media and other content platforms as well. I have seen a lot of people kind of talk about, make these big declarations of I'm getting off social media, it's just so bad for my mental health. And then a few, however long later, there they are again, which is, their journey and obviously something they're working with. But I haven't made any big announcements about being off social media. I've just kind of withdrawn myself from it. And I still go in there to check my DMs, and what's going to be very interesting is how I promote this book, right? Because the received wisdom now for how you promote a book, especially a nonfiction book, is you make a bunch of content about the book. But as I was starting to say earlier,
on investment for that,
there isn't any. And if anything,
awful.
Like I said, I think so many authors have been sold this message of create loads of content about your book. It'll lead to more book sales. And I kind of, after Women Without Kids had such a big launch, like it was everywhere. It was featured so many places, 70 odd podcast interviews. Like it was just there was a lot of content made about that book in legacy media and new media, online media. And it didn't sell that well. Mm-hmm. And I had this realization of like, wait, if people have heard me talk about the key talking points of this book on 70 podcasts, why are they going to bother reading the book? Especially when they've got 50 Substack newsletters in their inbox to read. Like so it comes from quite a personal place as an author as well, just being like, hold on a minute. Like I want to be writing books and selling books still. And I think that the content machine as it currently exists is awful for the book business.
And I think specifically, nonfiction. Yes. I mean, I think on TikTok, book talk, I think fiction has exploded in that space. But traditional
nonfiction, people don't need to read nonfiction books. They've got hundreds of
AI,
thousands of books worth of content to read for free in the palm of their hands, But of course, it's not fact checked. It's not edited a lot of the time. Like it's not high quality information that we're receiving online. It's often very low quality information that has been, talk about it being genetically modified. It's like GM content, right? Mm-hmm. It's genetically modified for engagement, not to deliver the most nutritious form of information possible.
Well, hopefully you can say to your publisher, I'm not going to be a hypocrite right now
Yes.
and pump this content machine when my whole book is about not wanting to do that.
I'm going to try and it'd be really interesting to come up with a sort of strategic promotional campaign that is almost, delivering on the message of the book at the same time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I give you this example all the time, and we've talked about your new book is Cal Newport. It's like his whole shtick is not being online or not being on social and what it does. But, he's got a pretty prolific podcast, and he also sends out newsletters. So it's not like he's not doing that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I do receive his newsletters, it feels less yelly. And I don't know if it's because that's just how I've interpreted him now, because he is anti those other things.
How often does he send one?
I would say maybe like every other week or so. And it's not even that. It doesn't even feel that consistent. It's kind of like when he has something to say, which I think, if you're talking to someone that's an email marketer, it's like consistency is what's gonna, but with him, I mean, I think it's kind of like, I'm not comparing my husband to Cal Newport, but my husband is one of the funniest people I've ever met. He's not at a party like a stand-up comedian. He's doing a one-liner when it has the biggest impact that it will have. So I don't know. I kind of think that can go far as well sometimes, but only if you've positioned yourself that, I think, from the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, for example, Zadie Smith is famously not on social media, right?
Do you know how many times I've Googled Zadie Smith? No. Like, I'm waiting for her to break or something.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think she will, but she, someone like Cal, like there are plenty of people who kind of established their names before there was all of this noise to try and cut through, and I think, and it's not that there's a privilege in that necessarily, but I think it's just a different situation for certain people.
Well, and it's just, not to be icky about it, but I guess you just have to get in other people's content.
Yes. Be written about exactly. Which
is what's still so content.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I mean, the content is going to be, we need to let people know what we're doing. And the content machine is the mode that we have to do that currently, the sort of space that we have to do that. And I think it's a question of, doing it in a way that feels sustainable for you on an energy level, and a way that feels ethical as well, and not extractive, to what extent that can be the case with a sales email.
Yes. And I think just doing what feels good to everyone else, but just also, what's that phrase of like, when you're on your deathbed, you'll never wish that you worked more or something like that. It's like, you'll never wish that you put out another blog post. It's
that you made more content.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like, so much of us have to do it to make a living. Like your friend that sends out all those sales emails, like that's probably her livelihood. But I guess if you're not her customer, you don't have to be in her ecosystem anymore.
Yeah. But then I wonder, like, how much of that is true? Does she need to be sending that many? Or could she send one a month and still have the same business? And I know this I speak from the experience of having been in that weekly email, like sort of posting to social 3 times a day. Like I kind of did all of that and actually kind of got really burnt out on it because it didn't ever translate to sales for me. So
God, no, same for like, Know Your Endo book. I was just like, it almost felt embarrassing how much effort I put into getting on podcasts, being on newsletters, being on Instagram, and then the return on the sales were like not the amount of effort I put into it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll never do that again.
With books, it's so interesting. I've worked with so many different agents and publishers at this point. No one has ever been able to give me a formula for like, do this and sell this many books, Right. It's I think the industry acknowledges that it's slightly mystical process in a way. Like there's often no predicting what is going to sell and what's not. I mean, yes, they're, they have their 5 or 6 big titles that will get like the 80 or 90% of their marketing budget every year. So there's that, of course. But other than that, it's often really unpredictable what makes a book go viral or what creates the kind of word of mouth. So
right.
I don't know.
And yeah. Before we move inside, Ruby taught me this years ago when I was so frustrated. I'm like, how did that woman become a New York Times bestseller? Because I know she did not sell that many books. She's like, look for the little dagger next to their name on the New York Times bestseller list, because that means there was bulk buying involved. Because
I teach you that?
Yes, you did.
Did I?
Yes. Because
okay.
and I won't say the author's name, but you had shared with me how she had all these big companies bulk buy her books, so she became a New York Times bestseller and then bought them back from those places.
That is very common practice.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how common, but yes, absolutely. There are plenty of people online who will tell you how to sell you a course probably on how to game the New York Times bestseller list. So yeah.
That's just an algorithm too, I feel like. It makes no sense unless you bulk buy, which is...
Exactly.
All right. Well, preview of your book. It's out in 2027, 2026?
It'll be out at the end of 2026, so about a year from now. Yeah.
My God.
I know. So slow. The publishing industry is so slow. I mean, if I was self-publishing it, I could bring it out like in a couple of months.
Right.
But I'm not.
But advances are nice.
Advances are nice. Advances pay my bills, basically. Yes. So yeah.
Well, thank you for the big preview. And if you want to know more about it, there's no content for it, so you'll just have to wait for the book.
Yeah, you will.
But if you do want to know when it launches, I mean, I'm sure your newsletter will at least say when it launches. So I'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll try to wrap this up in a little bit. It's not. See, I try to make these podcasts shorter, but it's just when it's you, I can't.
So quickly.
So we're going to move inside now, which we've already kind of been inside, but every podcast episode, I have people bring a current inside obsession, something that they're thinking about a lot. And the categories are TV, book, or movie, internet gossip you must discuss, a trend that you love or hate, which I feel like we've already talked about a lot of things we hate, or wild card. What are you bringing today?
I'm bringing books. I mean, we've been talking about books, but I'm bringing novels.
Okay.
Plural.
Okay.
So yeah, even as a kid growing up in this wilderness landscape, as soon as I could read novels, I had my nose in a book. I have always found so much comfort and companionship in fiction. And it used to frustrate me how slow of a reader I was, because there were so many books I wanted to read and I would just not get through that many of them. But since going on my content diet, I have so much more time to read. I'm reading like a novel every week.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it. I love it so much.
Doesn't it feel, and this is so over the top what I'm about to say, okay? And this almost feels like something some yoga person would say, but okay, I can't even believe I'm saying it. Interpret it in a better way. But does it almost feel like a return to yourself in a way?
Reading novels.
Yes, like being intimate with this book that is just yours. And it feels just cozy. And I feel more myself since I've been reading a lot again, because that is who I was really before being on social more,
right?
And doing Substack. It feels like a bigger return to myself, and I really have liked that a lot.
I love it. You used the word intimacy. I think I'm somebody who's always really craved intimacy, like closeness, meaning honesty and clarity and like validation and closeness, and things that I found lacking in lots of my human relationships, honestly. And I don't have a huge group of friends. I have a handful of friends that I feel close to. You're one of them. And even though I only see you like every couple of years, since I met you, you've been someone I've felt that level of honesty and intimacy with, in terms of the way we're able to talk to each other. And I feel like I get that intimacy in my relationships with fictional characters in books. And so that's one reason I think they really feed me. But again, in the content diet, I sort of make a case for reading more books multiple times throughout the book, actually. And in terms of novels, there's something about engaging with a fictional piece of work where you are actually, it's a co-creative act. You are in partnership with the author, co-creating this world and these characters. And so it does kind of belong to you. It is an expression of you in a way, because it's an expression of your imagination, the way you see that world and the way you see those people and the way you experience what they're experiencing. And there's just something so fulfilling about reading as a form of entertainment and as a form of content. And specifically for me, reading fiction, like nonfiction has always felt like work to me. I've worked as a journalist since my early 20s. It's, what I do in terms of my professional life. And so I've never got the same level of sort of pleasure from reading nonfiction, but fiction, I love it. And so, yeah, that's been my inside activity of choice this past year and a half, just reading lots of books. And I do read on Kindle, and that's it's partly convenience. The content machine is all about convenience, making it as easy as possible to consume as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And so I do, but I also, I live in a small, 1-bedroom apartment in New York. I don't have space for tons of books. My bookshelves are already full to bursting, and Kindle allows me to read as many books as I want without having to then feel bad about disposing of those books when I don't have anywhere to store them.
Yes. And if anyone is thinking that they want to start reading, and I love how this is like some sort of novel concept that we're talking about, reading. But I think like for myself, like when I was doing the podcast, the first iteration of this for 8-9 years, however long, it was so focused on health and wellness. And I mean, I was reading some sort of health or wellness book every week because I was interviewing people or a business thing. And I'll have to say, I started to realize they were giving me anxiety because there's so much information in this one that conflicts with this one. And then what am I supposed to believe? And then I think then I wrote my own books, and then I started, engaging more in social, and I kind of lost novel reading a lot, and I'm back in it so strong. And I think what's difficult sometimes I think that also we get to an age, I think, where we start to feel like we have to just read smart, elevated novels. I mean, I just like reading really lowbrow mystery thrillers, rom-coms, just read anything that appeals to you. I think we get nervous about what we read and how it will appear to others sometimes. I don't give a fuck. I just this is fun.
I don't give a fuck. I mean, I actually realized at some point this past year, if something has won a Pulitzer Prize, I'm not going to enjoy it.
Exactly.
I actually realized, I was like, the more glowing the New York Times review, the less I'm probably likely to enjoy this novel.
Totally.
So, yeah.
I mean, exactly. I like when people are like Booker Prize. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, although that said, I did just read Flesh by David Soleil, which just won the Booker Prize, and it was very, very good. I really enjoyed it. I was very it's a really easy read. It's got that kind of Sally Rooney sort of just quite basic prose style, I suppose, but it was really affecting. It's one of those books that I keep thinking about it weeks after, thinking about the character, and what he went through.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that when you named a male author. I've noticed that the past 20 books I've read, all female authors. I don't think I like men's interpretation of women, because most books I read are about women. And I guess I'm just realizing this more recently. When I attempted to read a book written by a man and he was talking about a woman, I'm like, I think it's just where we are in the world of misogyny and just our administration. I'm like, no, don't fucking think what she thinks. I think I'm just being very reactive to that. But I really
it's interesting. I would say about 90% of the books I read are by women, typically because they're just about subjects that I'm interested in, because they're subjects that are more female skewed, I suppose, or whatever. This David Soleil book, it's about masculinity in a way, and about a very specific kind of expression of masculinity. And it's very interesting to follow this male character. And it's about a series of relationships that he has with women, but purely through his eyes. He's not trying to analyze them. The author's not trying to write their character. It's very interesting. But yeah, I read a book called Complicity. I can't remember who the author is recently, but it was kind of like, oh wow, he's really trying to get into. I don't know. Every book for me is a bit of an anthropological sort of study in a way of like how the author interprets human relationships. And so, yeah, while I'm drawn more to books by women, I'm also interested in how males portray their female characters.
Yes.
It's good insight, I think.
Yes. And I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, so people FF if you need to, but I also think that this is reading novels has really connected me with a friend that I don't know if we necessarily lost touch, but we were just such good friends. And then he moved to Amsterdam and COVID happened, and we would text maybe every 6 months to a year. But then we started a little book club together, and we only read books that are about to be a television show or movie. And so we get to read the book together, but we're not allowed to watch the trailer or see who's cast in it. And then after we're finished reading the book, then we have a call about the book and we talk about it. And then we talk about who we think should be cast. And then we get to watch the trailer. And then we watch the film or movie. And then we have another recap call. So it's like a 2-month thing.
This is so good. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm recommending in my content diet book.
Good.
I'm like, this is the kind of thing we should be spending our time doing, not scrolling on Instagram.
But we just like, it is such, we have reconnected in a way that is so deep, and it's just, and we're on our 6th or 7th book now. We're doing The Maid right now, which is about to come out as a movie. Don't tell me who's in it.
Not Maid, not the same Maid that was on Netflix.
The Maid.
There was one called just Maid that was a memoir.
No, that one is, I think, really depressing. I think this one is like a mystery. It's called The Maid.
Okay.
But yeah, we've done The Girlfriend, which was on Amazon Prime, which took place in London. It's just been so fun.
Have you done The Hunting Wives?
Yes.
Okay, I just binged the series. Obsessed. God, it was so trashy, but it was so
well.
Fun.
I will also tell you, and I, it's like the most obvious thing to say. Well, the book wasn't the same as the movie, but they actually completely changed who the killer was in the movie or the show, and so what we thought was going to happen didn't happen at all. And it was, and I was almost
like, shall I read the book? I kind of want to read the book.
I thought the book was way better than the show. The wigs in the show were also really hard to deal with. And also in The Girlfriend, they completely changed the ending as well. And I think I almost want a little note at the beginning to say, we've completely changed the end, because then I can watch it with a curiosity, not thinking I know. But I hate when I think I know it's going to happen and it doesn't.
It doesn't. I wonder if they probably did that so there could be a second series, so that the story would remain open-ended enough for...
Probably, or...
Definitely.
There was really no reason for the other one, which I don't think is going to be another... I don't know why they do it. But anyway, it's a really fun thing to do with a friend. It's just so fun. And because we both also... love TV so much that it's kind of bringing those two worlds together.
I love it. I might steal that.
Please do.
I'm going to find someone I think would like to do it with me now. But,
and I can send you, there's a website. There's a website that has books that are about to be TV movies. Because if it's been out for too long, you've probably already seen the cast for it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for hopping on Black Friday. I'm sure you were trying to shop for new bras like me.
No, my husband is going to... I'm working on my manuscript, Jess. It's due on Monday.
Okay. Thank you so much even more for doing this. What are you going to do to celebrate when you're done? Finished?
I have a little New York group. We call ourselves Witches Without Kids, and we try and meet up once a month or so. And I'm handing it in on Tuesday and on Monday. And on Tuesday, we've arranged to go for aura photos and dim sum. That's going to be my celebration.
Gosh, that sounds so great.
Yes.
Well, good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. I always love talking to you.
That's today's show. If you like this episode or any of the Inside and Outside episodes, please leave a review. You might not think it helps, but it really does. It helps you get into the little algorithm better and also lets advertisers know that you enjoy this show. All right, on Apple, here's how you do it. Go to the homepage, scroll all the way down to the end of the episodes, and you'll see something that says rating and reviews. Hit that 5 stars, write something. Just say love it if you want to. On Spotify, go to the homepage of the show. You'll see a little tiny gear icon. It'll have a drop down that says rate this show, leave 5 stars. There you can't even write anything. And that's it. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening to the show, and I'll talk to you next week.